Hello and welcome to Item 101. I'm going to be talking about some basic details on the items of Dota 2. So jumping right in, we can look at a list of all the items that are currently in the game right now. If you go to the Learn tab in the main menu and then clicking on Items, from here you have a list of every item in their respective category. You can click on each item and it'll give you the details. So we just pick an item. We got Blink Dagger here. Important aspects of the items, they each have a gold cost. Gold cost is what the item is worth, how much it costs to purchase, and the sell cost of the item will be based directly on this value divided by 2. So this Blink Dagger is worth 2250 gold, and then respectively it'll sell for 1125 gold, which is half of that number. Next to the gold cost, you can see a little icon with a home. This tells us where the item can be purchased from. So Blink Dagger has a little house on it, means it can be bought from the fountain. Whereas other items, such as the energy booster, has a little tent indicating that it must be purchased from the secret shop. Below the header here, we have a description of what the item actually does for us. So most items will grant you some kind of stat. Here the energy booster is giving us 250 mana, just means it adds to our total mana once we are holding this item in our inventory. There are items that also have active abilities and other more complex passive components. For example, Guardian Greaves here has an active ability called Mend, in addition to a passive ability called Guardian Aura, on top of having stats that get added passively. So in the active ability, we have some key components, 45 seconds right here with this little icon. This is the cooldown of this specific active ability. If it had a mana cost, it would also be listed here beside it. For example, this item has a 27-second cooldown, it has a 120 mana cost, and then it has a range of 700. Going back to the Guardian Greaves, gives us a radius, so some more amplifying information, gives us specific numbers of the abilities, and then also tells us the dispel type, basic dispel. But these are all more details that get added on in the description. Additionally, the passive ability here, we're talking about Guardian Aura. This is just an effect that is permanent and persists on your character for the entire time that you're holding it in your inventory and not in your backpack. Guardian Greaves specifically gives us a little bit of health regen, mana regen, armor, and the effect gets increased once heroes that are around you drop below a certain amount of health. Once we scroll down a little bit further past the abilities, we are given some clarifying information, some special stuff. Some of this you can only see in game when you're holding the Alt key down, so specifically this lighter colored box here. This is the Alt hover information, and it is usually in place to clarify some mechanics that might be otherwise confusing. Below all that, we have flavor text, which just gives us a little bit of a lore description. Not terribly important to the actual gameplay, however. And the last thing to make note of here in the ability description at the top, it says the ability is no target. All that means is the targeting effect for the ability is no target, which is you press the button and it activates, as opposed to something like Yule's Scepter, where it has an ability that is unit target, meaning the ability must be targeted on a unit. Or something like Radiance, which has a toggle ability, which you just, as it sounds, you turn the ability on and you turn the ability off. Below all of the description for the item, we can see this little diagram here, and this tells us how the item is constructed. Guardian Greaves specifically is built from a combination of 4 different items, those being Mechanism, Arcane Boots, Buckler, and a recipe. If we want to, we can even go a step further and take a look at what each of these items is built from until we get to items that can be purchased directly from the shop. So if we click on Mechanism, we can see that this item is built from Headdress, Chainmail, and a recipe. Click on Headdress again, we get Ring of Regen and a recipe. Conversely, we can also see the items above the one that we are currently looking at now, so Headdress builds into these 2 items above it. So it is made from Ring of Regen and a recipe, and can be made into Mechanism and Pipe of Insight. Now, recipes are an item that you won't find here on the layout. That's because they are specific to each item. And all that a recipe is basically an additional gold cost that is specific to an item to help balance it out. So for example here, Refresh Orb is another item that's also made from 3 components and a recipe. And this recipe just costs 200 gold, which doesn't actually show here. You have to find this in game, unfortunately. But you take the cost of all of its components and the recipe, and that is what makes the final gold value of the item. Now this is pretty much how items work. There are some specific interactions and details about items that you can't just know exactly from description. You'll have to look up on the wiki or play them in game, or see from the text at the bottom. But There are also another category of items called neutral items and neutral enchantments that go onto these neutral items. So these neutral items are different from your regular set of items in that they cannot be purchased or crafted from items in the store, and instead they are created by killing neutral creeps in the jungle. Those neutral creeps drop madstone bundles, and once you accumulate enough madstone, you are given an option between a random set of the items based on the tier that you're crafting. The tier is just based on the time in the game. So, at the 5-minute mark in each game, players will begin to be able to collect the madstone, and once they have enough madstone, they will be given the choice of 4 different tier 1 items. Now these tier 1 items have a bunch of different passive and sometimes active effects. The same thing is true for all of the tiers of items. On top of the effects that these have, for example, Chipped Vest gives you a passive ability to return damage when you're attacked, but you can also add an enchantment onto each neutral item. Just like with choosing the neutral item, or the artifact is what they're called, you get 4 options of neutral enchantments. The neutral enchantments are a little bit different in that some of them are only available at specific tiers. So for example, the tier 5 Wise enchantment is only available at tier 5. However, Mystical tier 1 enchantment is available from tier 1 up to tier 4 and not available at tier 5. And then you even have some that are in between, like Vampiric, which is available starting at tier 2 and ending at tier 3. At the 15-minute mark, players will be able to begin collecting madstone again to craft their second tier of item. Now once you craft a new item, it replaces the current neutral item that you're holding. You can only have one at a time. And when you go up in a tier, you're given 3 new options instead of 4. And instead of having that 4th option, you will be given the choice to retain your current artifact and instead have a new enchantment on it. Enchantments, unlike artifacts, cannot be retained across tiers. So if you craft a new neutral item, you will always have to choose an upgraded enchantment. The upside being that if an enchantment is available in the next tier, you will sometimes be given the option to take it again. For example, my favorite, Keen Eyed here gives cast range starting at tier 2, but if you upgrade to tier 3, sometimes you'll just be given the option to take an upgraded version of Keen Eyed, whereas other times it won't be offered at all and you will have to lose the Keen Eyed enchantment every time you go from tier 2 to tier 3. It's important to take note of the times at which neutral items come into the game, because these offer significant power spikes for some heroes. Another important aspect to note is that some items have a limited stock and are only refreshed on a specific timer. So, mainly consumable items here. Not all of them, like the Town Portal Scroll does not have a stock. You can purchase unlimited Town Portal Scrolls. But there are only so many amount of tangos that are available in the shop at one time for the team to purchase. So if my team has 5 tangos in stock in the shop, if I purchase one, the stock will go down to 4, and only 4 sets of tangos will be available to the entire team. Aghanim Shard is another unique item. The difference between Aghanim Shard and the other consumables is that this item starts at a stock of 0 and replenishes at the 15-minute mark. Once at that 15-minute mark, it has no stock timer and can be purchased by everyone on the team. So it basically just means that this item is not available for purchase until the 15-minute mark, at which point anyone can purchase it that has the gold. Another good thing to know about items is that there are 2 specific items that have the ability Everlasting, which are the Gem of True Sight and the Divine Rapier. This passive ability means that whenever you die while you're holding this item, you will drop it onto the floor at the place that you died, and it will no longer be in your possession. From there, the enemy team or your allies are both open to claim these items, and in the case of the Gem of True Sight, you can also have the courier come and pick it up across the map while you are dead. The Divine Rapier must be picked up by a hero, however. Speaking of other strange interactions, coming back to the Aghanim Shard, this item is a consumable and will grant you a permanent passive effect once you purchase it. Other items that have this ability are the Moon Shard, which can be held in the inventory. It's not purely consumable, but it has the ability to be consumed so that you can get a lesser effect but without taking up an inventory slot. And the Aghanim Scepter upgrade, Aghanim's Blessing, which allows you to have the effects of an Aghanim Scepter but without holding it in your inventory. Getting to know the items in Dota 2 is a very important part of learning to play the game and being good at Dota. For example, the item Scythe of Ice is a really powerful tool for disabling your enemies, so you can use it to jump on somebody, turn them into a harmless critter where they can't react, they can't cast spells or defend against your attacks, and allow you to kill people that way. But if you have good item knowledge, you can purchase other defensive items that will protect you from effects like Scythe of Ice. For example, Lincoln Sphere, which gives you the passive ability to block targeted spells on a short cooldown. So if somebody tries to use a scythe device on you while you have a Lincoln Sphere in your inventory, it will just be blocked instead, and it'll save you from that negative effect. This is just one specific example of interaction between items, and it's important to get in the game, try these items out, and understand what they do and how they interact with the different hero abilities in the game and also the other items, because you need to be able to know how to counter each item and each hero using the items that you have. Once you start a game, you can't change your hero, but you can change your item build. So sometimes it's appropriate to make pivots in situ and choose appropriate items, even if those items aren't a part of your normal hero build. To quickly recap what we just talked about, you can find details about the items in Dota 2 under the Learn tab and then going to Items. Each item has a gold cost, which is the value. Each item is constructed from other items or purchased directly from the shop or secret shop. Items give passive and sometimes active effects and abilities. Some items have a stock in the shop. Some items have the ability to grant passive permanent effects. And more information can be found about items by holding Alt and hovering over the item. That's all I've got for items. Get out there, go have some fun blasting people with the Dagon. Good luck, have fun, and I'll see ya on the lane.